The anime begins by showing a man dreaming on his way on a plane. The man dreams of a boy and a girl being attacked by an alien named Savage. A few moments later, the man woke up, and apparently, he had dreamed of the incident many times. He got off when the plane had landed at its destination. His name was Hayato Kisaragi, a new Little Garden High mothership student. His arrival seems to have been welcomed by people because he was the student with the highest score on the exam. Hayato then looked for a place for the new student welcome ceremony and asked a student named Fritz. However, a girl suddenly shouted while pointing at Hayato, instantly causing him to be surrounded by other students. He immediately avoided the crowd and hid, but suddenly a student named Emil Crossfoot ambushed him and said he was waiting for Hayato. He then took Hayato to the venue for the new student welcome event and again met with Fritz and the girl who pointed him earlier named Reisha. The scene shows Hayato in a large hall with the other new students. They were greeted by second graders named Erica Kandel and Liddy Steinberg, who served as student council vice presidents. There is also a third grader named Claire Harvey, who is the student council president of Little Garden High. At the event, two students were late named Noah Sheldon and Liu Shueme. This made Claire angry, and she immediately kicked them out of school. Emil then protested Claire's decision because, according to him, her decision was too much. She seemed to be getting angrier and helped kick him out of school. Hayato finally spoke up and defended the students that she had expelled. Finally, she challenges Hayato to a duel tomorrow at the main Coliseum. Claire said if he won, the three students would not be expelled, but if Hayato lost, it would be the other way around. Emil, who heard the challenge, agreed, although Hayato was hesitant initially. Emil seemed to convince him that he would definitely win the match. The welcoming ceremony for new students has ended. Now Hayato is invited by Emil to meet his best friend, Charlotte Demandius, one of the scientists at Little Garden High. Charlotte gave a red cube named 100 to Hayato and then explained the function. 100 is a weapon used against Savage by giving power to humans. It will react according to the user's will, and the humans who use 100 are called Slayers. Charlotte then provides information about Claire's fighting style using her 100 on Hayato so he can get an overview of the battle later. Emil then invites him to practice using his 100. Hayato immediately activated his 100 and turned into a Chevalier-type Slayer. Emil does the same and transforms into an arms-showered-type Slayer. Then, they practiced using 100 until the afternoon. The scene switches to Hayato visiting his sister, Karen, at the hospital. He apologizes to her because he was late to visit her because of 100's practice until the afternoon. Not long after, Hayato said goodbye to return to the dormitory. Arriving at the dormitory, Hayato was surprised because Emil was in his room. Emil, wearing clothes, was embarrassed and threw things at him and hit his head, making him faint. Not long after, Hayato woke up and was told by Emil that the two of them were roommates. She looked like she was about to sew up Hayato's torn uniform, but her thumb was bleeding from being pricked by a needle. Seeing that, Hayato immediately kissed her thumb because he had blood trauma due to past events. The day of Claire versus Hayato's battle arrived. The main Coliseum seemed packed with students and residents of the Little Garden mothership. Erica and Liddy seemed to be the commentators of the fight, where they both explained that their battle time was 15 minutes, while Emil seemed to be on the bench to help Hayato because he was still not used to using his 100. The fight was started by Hayato, who shot toward Claire and pinned her down because he couldn't control his 100 power. He accidentally held Claire's breasts, instantly making her angry, and beat him. On the other hand, Emil shouted at Hayato to put on his armor to block Claire's attack. He suddenly felt something strange with his body and was instantly able to transform into a full Chevalier. He could corner Claire with his full Chevalier mode. She clearly didn't want to suffer defeat, so exerting all of her 100's power was like fighting Savage. As a result, Hayato couldn't dodge her massive attack and passed out. Emil immediately entered the arena to check on Hayato's condition. Emil protests Claire for breaking the rules. Charlotte then appears and says that Hayato is still defeated in the fight. But Claire told Charlotte that she also lost because she couldn't contain herself and decided that the fight's result was a draw. The scene changes, showing Hayato being treated at the hospital. Claire was in his infirmary. When he woke up, Hayato immediately asked Claire about the fate of Emil and the other two students. She explained that she cancelled the order to expel the three students. Not long after, Emil came and scolded Claire for disturbing Hayato, who was resting. Finally, Claire left his room, but she wondered to herself along the way. She wondered why Hayato, who was a new student, almost beat her in battle. The next day, Hayato returned to the dormitory and invited Emil to hang out at Little Garden City. The scene then shows the atmosphere of Little Garden City looking normal, just like cities on the mainland. However, Hayato was surprised because the people around them seemed to be paying attention. Emil explains that he became famous after fighting against Claire, the student council president. Emil continued to invite Hayato to go see the sea. Shortly after arriving there, Hayato got a phone call from Karen. He explained that he was hanging out with his roommate. She then decided to go to meet him and Emil. After that, she seemed to be interrogating Emil. She warned Emil not to mess with Hayato. Emil explained that he was a man. Hearing that, Karen was instantly relieved. The three of them decided to have lunch at a cafe. Suddenly, Claire appears and invites Hayato to join the student council and become a slayer. She recruited Hayato because she saw his potential. Emil said that he would join the student council with Hayato. However, Liddy seemed to disagree because Emil was a weak student. As a result, Emil activated his 100 and challenged Liddy to a duel. He was so adept at using his 100, even being able to keep up with Liddy. Not long after, an alarm sounded in Little Garden City, a sign that a savage had appeared in their territory. Claire told Liddy to stop the fight, but Emil didn't seem to accept it. Claire explained the meaning of the alarm sound. Suddenly Charlotte appears and asks her to invite Hayato and Emil. At first, Claire doesn't allow Hayato and Emil to fight because they are newbies, but Hayato forces her to help her fight Savage. Hayato continued to explain that Little Garden City would be destroyed if they just held on and waited for help from Warslam headquarters. Charlotte told Claire that she received orders from Lisa to recruit Hayato and Emil. Finally, she allowed them because she couldn't argue with Lisa's decision. The scene then shows Claire explaining the attack strategy to her members on the plane. Hayato and Emil, who had joined for the first time, were instructed by her to attack a normal savage. After that, the Slayers jumped from the plane while activating their 100 and attacked the savages. With Erica and Liddy, Claire looks compact and can easily kill the savage through their cooperation. Now it was Hayato and Emil's turn to jump towards a savage. Emil seemed to easily cut off the savage's arm, unlike Hayato, who failed and was about to be attacked by the savage. Emil did not stay silent and attacked the head of the savage, causing his head to explode. On the other hand, Claire, Liddy, and Erica looked overwhelmed against a giant savage. Even Liddy and Erica fell unconscious due to the attack from the savage. Claire then prepared to use all her strength but ran out of energy. The savage fired an attack at her, but Hayato managed to save her. The savage fired its attack again, but this time they combined their forces and managed to direct the savage's attack elsewhere. Emil then attacks Savage from close range, but he gets hit by Savage's attack because he protects Liddy, who is still unconscious. Hayato, who saw this, remembered his past memories. Apparently, Emil was the same girl as the girl Hayato had saved, so Emil was originally a woman disguised as a man. Soon after, Hayato stood in front of Emil and resisted Savage's attack. He told Emil to take Liddy away from there. Not only that, Hayato's eyes seemed to have turned golden after his memory recovered. He turns into full Chevalier mode with tremendous power and can easily fight the savage alone. However, Hayato seemed to have lost control of his power and endangered the surroundings. Emil came to her senses and resuscitated Hayato by kissing him. After that, she gives directions to Hayato, so he manages to split the savage with one attack. Shortly after, Hayato looked dazed from losing so much energy. Emil then restrained his body while thanking him for his hard work. Claire looks angry at Emil because she is a woman. Seeing that, she laughs shyly in response to Claire and Hayato in their room. She then explains an incident from childhood where Hayato used to save her by sucking her blood. As a result, he loses his memory due to being exposed to a virus from Savage's attack on Emil. She explained that humans who contracted the virus from Savage were called variants, and they were one of them. However, Emil can control the power of the Savage virus by practicing. Hayato then got up to drink, but suddenly his body ached, making him fall on Emil. She understood that Hayato must be in pain and then sat on his lap and kissed him again. Apparently, she did this because the virus in her body could heal him. Suddenly Claire came to Hayato's room and saw Emil sitting on his lap, which made Claire misunderstand. Hayato got up and was about to explain the situation, but his body ached again. This time, he fell again and fell on Claire and accidentally kissed her. Claire suddenly felt angry because he had suddenly kissed her. Because of that, he could only apologize and explain that it was an accident. Over time, Hayato, who managed to kill a giant savage, clearly became famous on the internet. So that makes a top Japanese singer named Sakura want to recruit Hayato to be her bodyguard at the concert. The scene then shows Sakura's manager, Souffle, contacting Little Garden High to hire Hayato's services while Hayato is practicing sparring with Emil, Fritz, and Reisha. During the sparring, Hayato seemed so easy to beat Fritz and Reisha. Apparently, he could control the power of the virus because he was diligently training with Emil. Not long after, Erica came to meet Hayato and said that Claire had called him. The scene moved to Claire's room. There, Claire asked Hayato if he wanted to go on a mission as Sakura's bodyguard during a concert on the island of Zwei next week. Claire offers Hayato a reward for his services in killing Savage. Hayato replied that he accepted the mission and asked for a gift in the form of a Sakura concert ticket for his younger sister, Karen. Hayato then visits Karen, tells her his mission to her, and lets her know that she can watch Sakura's concert. Hearing that, Karen was obviously very happy because she is a big fan of Sakura. After that, Karen seemed to predict Hayato using tarot cards. She said he should be careful of women. Hearing that, he obeyed her words and said goodbye. The scene then shows Emil coming to Hayato to wake him up. That morning, she took him for a walk, but he refused because he was on a mission. After that, he and Liddy seemed to welcome Sakura, who got off the plane. Then they took Sakura to the hotel. Along the way, Hayato seemed to be watching Sakura while thinking about why she chose him as a bodyguard. She invited Hayato to talk, then he told her that his sister was a big fan of hers. Arriving at the hotel, Hayato seemed to escort Sakura to her room. However, she stared at him silently, making him realize his duty as a bodyguard. Hayato went in first to ensure security in her room. After that, he intended to leave, but suddenly she asked if Hayato would marry her. Sakura continued to offer to date first and then marry. Not only that, she explained her life plans to him later. Hearing this, he then teased Sakura so that she would stop talking and take a shower. Hayato then realized that the woman who was predicted by Karen was Sakura. After Sakura finished bathing, Hayato escorted her to a press conference and met some local officials. After that, she asked Souffle about her schedule and found out she had free time, so she invited Hayato to the concert venue. Arriving there, Sakura activated her 100 and did a dress rehearsal, which made Hayato think that Sakura was a slayer. Then, he meets Charlotte and her robot maid named Mei. Charlotte explained that she was there to help Sakura use 100 because it not only functions as a weapon but can also be a supporting tool for performances. After that, Sakura and Hayato returned to the hotel. He seemed to be reporting his mission agenda to Claire over the phone. Claire then asked him to come to her house because she had something to say. Afterward, he returned to the dormitory and took Emil for a walk on the island of Zwei tomorrow when Hayato was free on his mission. The scene then moves and shows a group of poachers watching Sakura's concert venue. They planned to wreak havoc when the concert ended and would defeat the Slayers from Little Garden High. The next day, Hayato came to see Claire. There, she said that she received information from Warslam headquarters about the theft of the variable stone during the previous concert and the possibility that the poachers would return at the current Sakura concert. Claire asked Hayato to stay alert and be careful when escorting Sakura. After that, Hayato met Emil and was amazed by her feminine appearance. Emil said they were going on a date, so Hayato decided to buy clothes. After changing his uniform into new clothes, he bought her a necklace. When they were about to leave the shop, they ran into Fritz and Reisha, thus making them hide in the changing room. After successfully escaping, Hayato and Emil rest in a park. Emil then excused herself for a moment and asked him to wait. Suddenly, Hayato got a call from Claire, who said that Sakura had disappeared from her hotel room. Apparently, Sakura met Hayato and asked him to hang out, thus making him panic for fear that Emil would misunderstand her. Finally, he asked Sakura to leave while informing Emil via a message that he had an urgent need. Sakura turned out to invite Hayato to visit the big canyon of Zwei. They were both amazed by the natural scenery in Zwei, which was so beautiful. On the other hand, Clary already knew that Sakura had gone with Hayato, and she looked jealous. Sakura then told her childhood memories of meeting Hayato at the refugee camp. The reason she became a singer now was that Hayato complimented her voice and made her confident. She explained that she was left by her father at the treatment center to be injected with a vaccine by Vitali so as not to be infected with the variant virus. But it was a lie. The vaccine was aimed at turning children into slayers, but because the dose was too high, many children died. When it was late afternoon, Hayato and Sakura returned to the hotel. Suddenly, the bus they were riding in was attacked by Savage and overturned. Then, Hayato asked all the passengers to leave while he confronted Savage. Afterward, Sakura helps him by resisting Savage's attacks. The two of them worked together to kill the Savage. Suddenly, another Savage appeared and attacked Sakura until she bounced off. Fritz and Reisha came. They both attacked the Savage but failed. Emil appears there and aims for the core of the Savage's head but fails. Apparently, the Savage belongs to the power of regeneration. Emil looks angry at Hayato for being left behind by Hayato, who went on a date with Sakura. Emil instructed Reisha and Fritz to attack the Savage and let Hayato issue the ultimate attack. They attacked according to strategy, but their efforts failed. Not long after the poachers appeared, one of them managed to attack the core of Savage's head to retrieve it. The poachers attacked Hayato and the other slayers. After finding what they were looking for, the poachers left. The scene then switches to Hayato and the others reporting to Claire. She explains that the poachers are the same as Slayer, except they are called hunters. A hunter's goal of hunting down the core of Savage's head was to sell it to Vitali. Emil asked why Hunter was after the core of Savage's head. Claire then explains that the core structure of Savage's head is the same as the variable stone, which means that the core function of Savage's head is the same as Hundred's. Claire then scolds Emil for engaging Fritz and Reisha to fight against Savage. Even so, Claire offers Fritz and Reisha to undergo training as slayers for their courage in saving the citizens. After the meeting was over, Hayato and the others return to the dormitory. He apologizes to Emil for leaving her on a date. She forgives him and understands his work. The next day, at Sakura's concert, Hayato, Karen, Emil, Reisha, and Fritz attended the concert. Sakura appeared on stage and started singing while performing using her 100. She sang the same song she sang in the refugee camp, which made Karen realize that the girl she met was Sakura. Finally, the concert was lively and very memorable for the audience. Elsewhere, Sakura and Souffle preparing to leave the little garden mothership. There was Hayato with Karen and her friends, who came to escort Sakura away. She then gave Karen an autograph, then after that, she said goodbye to Hayato and kissed his cheek, which made Emil and Claire jealous. The scene then changed. Hayato was seen sleeping in his room. Not long after, he woke up feeling something, and it turned out that Sakura was on top of him. He panicked, seeing Sakura somehow managed to be in his room. Shortly after, Claire entered Hayato's room and looked angry when she saw Sakura and Hayato alone. She told Sakura to leave Hayato's room, but suddenly Emil entered and found them. Hayato and his friends are on vacation at the beach at Claire's invitation. Not long after, a man appeared who got off the helicopter. The man was named Judar Harvey, Claire's older brother and CEO of Whirlsome Comp. Judar praised Hayato for his bravery against Savage the other day. He praised Hayato's other friends for serving as slayers. His reason there was to take Claire to go with him. After the vacation, Hayato and Emil looked back at the dorm. They then get a call from Claire for a meeting in the student council president's room. Arriving there, Claire gives Hayato, Emil, Fritz, and Reisha the agenda for the meeting on the Savage eradication operation. She explained that the operation was under the auspices of the United Nations and was called the Peacekeeping Force. She appoints Fritz and Reisha to join Hayato and Emil to represent the little garden mothership in the Peacekeeping Force. After the meeting, Judar seemed to meet Hayato and invited him to go to the place where Little Garden's energy source is. A girl was sleeping in the capsule. Then Judar explained that the girl was Lisa, the first Slayer and variant, and Little Garden's energy source. Suddenly Claire appeared and pointed a gun at Judar. She was angry because Judar took Hayato to meet Lisa, who turned out to be their younger sister. Judar then explained that Hayato had divine blood, so he could awaken Lisa from her long slumber. He asked Hayato to touch the capsule so Lisa could wake up. Hayato then complied with his request, but it didn't affect Lisa. Judar seemed to regret this. He explained that Lisa had been targeted by Vitali. Apparently, Judar and Vitali had a problem, thus causing a prolonged enmity between them. He wanted to negotiate with the Hunters, Vitali's direct subordinates. Before leaving, he asked Hayato and Claire to talk to Lisa. Maybe Lisa would wake up like that. Days changed, and a joint United Nations operation was carried out. Claire seemed to provide information about the city that was attacked by the Savage Army. She was referring to Tianchuan City in the Empire of Qing. Claire explained that Hayato and his friends would be guided by Shuimei and stay in the barracks provided in Tianchuan City. Arriving at the camp, Hayato and his friends saw a lot of soldiers from various countries who participated in the joint operation. When they were about to go to their tent, suddenly Emil was called by a girl named Claudia. Emil is the princess who has been missing from the Gutenberg kingdom, and her real name is Emil Gutenberg. However, she refuses Claudia's invitation to return to the kingdom because she wants to continue with the man she loves, namely Hayato. At first, Hayato was confused about why Emil was called a princess by Claudia, and Emil explained her true identity to him. Claudia doesn't seem to agree with her decision, then challenges Hayato to a duel. If he wins, then Emil will stay with him. If he loses, it will be the other way around. The scene then shows Hayato and Claudia preparing to duel. They are prohibited from using 100 and can only fight with ordinary weapons. In the end, even the strong Hayato could easily defeat her. On the other hand, Claire grouped the Slayers into teams that split up to hunt down the Savages. Hayato was on her team along with Emil, Erika, and Claudia. They hunted the Savages in the forest until nightfall and decided to camp there. Claire gave instructions to patrol, then Emil took Hayato with her. However, Claudia blocked Emil's wishes because the patrol team had been determined by Claire. As a result, Emil seemed annoyed at being separated from Hayato and was going to patrol with Erika. Not long after, Hayato, Claire, and Claudia got the first patrol turn. It looks like Hayato and Claire are looking at the stars in the sky. It looks so romantic that Claudia has an idea to unite them. Claudia hopes her idea will work, so Emil is heartbroken and wants to return to the Gutenberg kingdom. Then, Claudia asked Claire and Hayato to go to the lake because she saw a savage. She added that they could also go on a longer date. Her plan apparently worked. She looked happy when they left. On the other hand, Claire and Hayato were preparing to attack Savage. Claire seemed to run to attack first, but she actually slipped. The Savage, who saw Claire, then attacked her. Fortunately, Hayato saved her and killed the Savage. On the other hand, Emil couldn't sleep because she kept thinking about Hayato. Claudia, who had returned to the tent, told what Hayato and Claire had done, which made her jealous. Claudia asks her to give up pursuing her love for Hayato and return to the Gutenberg kingdom. Claudia said that Hayato was not a loyal man and liked to have an affair. However, her efforts seem unsuccessful because Emil still insists on pursuing her love for Hayato. While soaking by the lake, Claire says that her younger sister turned into a variant because of their own mother, whose name is Linny's Harvey. Her mother sacrificed Lisa to revive Little Garden, while Judar used Lisa as Little Garden's energy. She became the student council president to monitor Judar's movements in leading Little Garden. She continued to say that all this time, she was for the sake of her family. Hayato said that he did the same thing as Claire. He wants to become a slayer because Little Garden wants to pay for Karen's care. Not long after, there was an alarm for help from Fritz's team because it was attacked by Hunter. Fritz lit a flare in the air to show his position. Claire then told Hayato to return to the tent to give the news to the others while she helped Fritz. The scene shows Fritz and Liddy, who were defeated by the Hunters. Not long after, Claire arrived there and asked the Hunters to surrender because they couldn't possibly win against her 100 powers. The Hunters refused to give up, especially since they knew it would rain a little more. Apparently, 100 couldn't function optimally in the rain, and Claire was defeated by the Hunters. Luckily, they arrived on time and beat up the two Hunters. Emil can easily defeat a female hunter named Nakri, but Hayato is seen fighting fiercely against a male hunter named Krovan, who is very strong. Krovan said that he hated Slayer and Little Garden and wanted to slash Hayato, but he saw Krovan's past when their swords touched each other. Krovan wanted freedom, so Hayato promised that he would feel it in Little Garden. Suddenly, a savage appears and interrupts Hayato and Krovan's fight. After that, Krovan throws the 100 he stole at Claire and fights Savage to achieve the promised freedom. However, the Savage was too strong even though Krovan had used all his strength. Krovan nearly got hit by the Savage's crush, but Hayato managed to save him. He becomes touched after seeing Hayato save him and asks Hayato to save Nesset and Nakri. The Savage had a very strong barrier, so Claire instructed them to attack simultaneously, but the Hunters had apparently damaged their communication device. She asked the Hunters for help, and the Hunters wanted to help because the situation was very urgent. Fortunately, Claire managed to contact the other Slayer squad and attacked Savage simultaneously. Sadly, the method did not work. Then Charlotte contacted Claire and advised her to combine powers with Hayato. Charlotte explains that they combine them by kissing so that their energy can be connected. Emil is jealous and opposes the suggestion, while Claudia is happy because Claire and Hayato will kiss. After kissing, Claire contacted the other squad to attack Savage simultaneously. This time, the energy emanating from her 100 was so great and bright that it could break the Savage's protective walls. Hayato then sped off and launched his ultimate attack toward the core of Savage's head, and his attack was successful. He then faints and falls into the lake, and Emil saves him. After the incident, Krovan, Nesset, and Nakri were taken to the Little Garden mothership for questioning by Judar. While the Slayers returned to the Little Garden mothership due to their many injuries, it turned out that Hayato was still unconscious, but Emil seemed so faithfully waiting for him to wake up. Not long after, Karen and Sakura came to see Hayato. Some time passed, and they came to see Claire and asked how the condition of the Hunters. Claire explained that Krovan and the other Hunters didn't want to give out any information. She added that Warslam headquarters managed to find Vitali's headquarters. Unfortunately, the data at the base had been deleted, and Vitali managed to escape. For that, the security in Little Garden will be tightened because Vitali is still on the loose. Claire explained that soon, Little Garden will hold a garden festival, which is an event to celebrate Little Garden's birthday and is open to the public. The Little Garden mothership will be anchored in Sangria Port in Liberia. Then, Claire asks Slayer for help from other schools to help secure the garden festival. Elsewhere, Hayato and his friends welcomed Slayers from other schools. Claudia was one of the Slayers from another school, and she looked very happy to see Emil again. On the other hand, the city's atmosphere seemed busy by the students of Little Garden High who were preparing to hold the garden festival. In the afternoon, when Hayato was visiting Karen in the hospital, he saw Sakura going to another room and followed her. He followed Sakura into a room and found Karen, who was there with Charlotte, because it turns out she is practicing singing with Sakura to perform at a concert at the garden festival. Hayato looked worried and afraid that Karen would be in trouble because of her weak physique. Sakura explained that Karen would use 100 during the concert so that she could move freely. Hearing that, he encouraged Karen, but Sakura kicked him out because they were about to start their practice. The next day, the garden festival began. Then, Claire gave a speech to the audience at the main coliseum while the Slayers, including Hayato and Emil, were in charge of maintaining security. On the other hand, the Hunters are served various delicious food to celebrate the garden festival. Krovan was starting to think that the people of Little Garden were starting to accept him. Soon after, Hayato and Emil get a break and decide to tour the event. They pay a visit to the maid cafe, but Emil seems annoyed that Hayato is seeing other girls instead. Erika and the maids pulled Emil to change her clothes, and she turned into a maid too. Hayato looked amazed because Emil looked so beautiful, while Erika and Raisha let them go on a date. The garden festival was lively, and the main coliseum was packed with spectators. Not long after, Judar arrived and was amazed to see so many people participating in the event. The scene then shows Hayato visiting Karen shortly before the concert. He seems to be cheering on Karen as well as Judar. The concert started with Sakura's action starting to sing while activating her 100. On the other hand, Vitali apparently managed to infiltrate Little Garden after successfully hypnotizing a slayer named Wendy. On stage, Sakura introduced Karen as her childhood friend and sang along with her. Karen activated her 100 and started singing in a very melodious voice. Her action received a standing ovation from the audience. Hayato then continued his work, found Wendy unconscious, and reported to Claire. Wendy doesn't seem to remember what happened to her and talks to herself non-stop. Afterward, Claire asked Charlotte to check on Wendy's condition. On the other hand, Erica and Raisha found a suspicious bee-shaped robot. Erica caught the bee robot, but when it was caught, the bee robot exploded. Soon after explosion occurred due to the act of robot bees scattered in various places. Claire instructed the slayers to evacuate everyone. The bee robot targets a power source, so the communication signal is cut off. Claire and Charlotte realized that Vitali was the mastermind behind all this. Suddenly, a plane crashed into Little Garden Port. From inside the plane appeared Savage, who did not have a head core. It surprised Claire. Charlotte later learns that Vitali's goal of collecting Savage core stones is to be replicated and turned into a Savage-shaped weapon. Claire ordered Hayato and Emil to keep the hunters from being snatched by Vitali. Meanwhile, the Little Garden mothership is again attacked by foreign aircraft, destroying the transparent protective dome. Attack after attack continued to pound the Little Garden mothership, making Claire think of directly intervening. Not long after, Hayato and Emil came to see Claire and asked for permission to fight. He convinced Claire with his promise to continue serving the Little Garden mothership, so she allowed him on the condition that he return safely. On the other hand, Vitali managed to find the hunters and told them to attack Little Garden. However, Krovan refused because it would endanger the citizens. She seemed to take out a remote that gave the hunters a headache. Meanwhile, Fritz and Liddy are battling Vitali's savages, trying to prevent the savages from entering Little Garden. Sakura and Karen seem to calm the main Colosseum, saying that Slayer would protect them. Hayato and Emil seem to be attacking from outside the protective dome with only 40% of his strength. On the other hand, Vitali shot Mei Mei for blocking her when she was about to bring the hunters. The hunters had apparently been brainwashed, so they returned to Vitali, and the plan went smoothly. Vitali wants to find Lisa because she wants to rebuild Little Garden according to her wishes. Soon afterward, Judar went to Lisa's room while calling Claire. He said that he would handle Vitali because they both knew each other. Meanwhile, Hayato and Emil seemed overwhelmed by Vitali's savage for not having a core. The other slayers were exhausted but couldn't find the savage's weakness. Nakri is injured by opening the steel door, which stops Krovan and Neset. Soon after, Vitali ordered them to keep going and leave Nakri. She threatened Krovan if he didn't want to obey. But it turns out that Mei Mei chases her and helps Hunter. Mei Mei doesn't accept seeing her treatment of hunters and shoots each other. Mei Mei was injured in the leg, and Vitali decided to run away. Not long after, Krovan asked how Mei Mei was, and she said she was fine. He was again touched by Mei Mei and Little Garden's kindness to them. After that, Vitali finally managed to find Lisa, but she was already welcomed by Judar. He already knew that Vitali would come looking for Lisa, but he wanted to know why she wanted to attack Little Garden. Vitali replied that she would take revenge because Judar had broken her heart. Back in the battle, Hayato and Emil were hit by sound waves from the savages, so they couldn't fight. Claire then explained that the wave only affected the variants, but Little Garden would be destroyed if they were to lose. On the other hand, Judar praised and admired Vitali's creations and teased her about getting back with him. She looked angry and insisted that her coming to Little Garden was to make Judar miserable. Vitali then shoots Lisa, but the bullet fails to break the capsule because Lisa has woken up from sleep. Vitali calls Judar a monster, but he says he will do anything to wake Lisa. Afterward, he shoots Vitali, then he thanks her for helping him achieve his goal. Even though Vitali was heartbroken, she was still happy to hear his words and died. After that, Judar seemed to tell Lisa to go back into the capsule while he checked the situation outside. But Lisa refused and said that she wanted to do something. On the other hand, Hayato and Emil could not fight the savages, so the savages managed to enter. Sakura and Karen were rendered helpless because they heard a wave of attacks from Savage without a core. Shortly after, Lisa came to see Sakura and said that if the waves could be defeated with her singing, Lisa healed Karen so she could stand up and walk again. Afterward, Sakura and Karen began to sing and made the slayers able to fight again. Then, Hayato took out the last remaining energy and turned it into a full chevalier to target the giant savage. Even so, the savage attacked by Hayato stood back up and counterattacked. Suddenly the hunters came and saved Hayato and the others. The hunters kept Savage from the crowd, but Nakri was injured by Savage's attack. Then, Krovan asked Neset to take Nakri away from there. After that, Krovan was going to fight Savage as revenge against Vitali, but he was injured by Savage's attack instead. Neset, who saw this, was angry and awakened his pent-up strength. When Claire arrived at the location, apparently, Neset transformed into the savage. However, Neset seemed out of control because he couldn't withstand that much power. On the other hand, Lisa came to Hayato, who had fainted in a dream, then gave him the energy to stop Neset's rampage. At first, Claire wants to kill Neset, but Hayato restrains her and tries to save Neset. However, Claire looked doubtful because it seemed impossible, but Hayato reassured her. Then, Hayato tried to talk to Neset, but apparently, Neset had been indoctrinated by Vitali that the Slayers were his enemy. Emil then comes to help Hayato. She believes that Hayato can save Neset. Hayato reassures Neset that she is free from Vitali for good. Time passed, and the monsters in her body began to rampage. Not long after, Claire demanded Hayato quickly complete his task. He managed to get into Neset's soul and asked her to trust Little Garden. He says that Neset is his friend and friend of everyone in Little Garden. She was touched by his words and managed to awaken herself and return to being a normal human. After that, Emil hugged Hayato for his success, and Krovan and Nakri thanked him. On the other hand, Lisa seemed to hug Claire, which made her happy that her little sister had come to her senses. The scene then shows Hayato and Emil watching fireworks, where she says she is happy to be with him, and he feels the same way. When they are about to kiss, they are caught by their friends and assume that Hayato is gay because they still thought that Emil was a man. Not long after, Claudia came and scolded Hayato for kissing Emil. His friends were surprised when they learned that Emil was a woman and a princess. Finally, Emil confessed and told her true identity to her friends, including Claire. Claire looks jealous to see Hayato and Emil, then she prepares to shoot them both with her 100, and the anime ends. The moral message that can be obtained in this anime is to never give up and keep fighting for the things you want. Like Hayato, who wants to see his sister get well. Like Emil, who wants to live with Hayato forever. And Claire, who finally gets to see her little sister wake up again. All that was obtained because of the struggle and unyielding spirit.